Hi, everyone, and welcome to Presently Eki with Claudia. I am Claudia, your host. And Presently Eki is a community of healers from around the world that come together and share their remarkable story of their path to self discovery and self love, and hopes to empower and inspire your path to self discovery and self love. And as you know, I get always excited to have a guest. So today, super duper, even more excited, I have Carly with us today. Hi, Goddess. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Claudia.
Yes, of course. And Carly is a strength, nutrition, and health behavior change coach, a dog mom, avid skier, amateur baker, which we will talk about, and constantly evolving human. As a coach, she's most passionate about helping people find the version of fitness that they're excited to incorporate into their lives. She also works full-time as a strength and conditioning coach in the South Bay of San Francisco and is the owner and head coach of her own online coaching company called Moxie Barbell. Yay!
Yeah, super fun stuff.
Super fun. Yeah, I remember the baking conversation we had. That was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely dive into that later. But before we begin our conversation, per usual, we're going to take 3 deep breaths together. If you're driving, please do this later or after when you're home. In the meantime, we're going to close our eyes or lay your eyes somewhere comfortably low where you don't have a distraction. And the first deep breath we're going to take together is for you to settle into your body. So we're going to take a deep breath. And feel what it's like to be in your body. And the next deep breath we're going to feel what it's like in our minds. So just sense what's going on, possibly lots of thoughts, and that's okay. And the next deep breath we're going to tap into our hearts, and maybe we'll get quiet enough to hear what it has to say. Maybe one last breath to incorporate all 3 and just appreciate all 3 and who we are today. That's always so nice.
Yeah, very calming. What a
Very.
great way to start the show.
Yes, so that way it's about erasing what we had prior to this, and then we can start fresh. And the listener can also be fresh in listening to what we have to share today.
Love it.
All right, amazing. So we're going to get it right straight into it. Carly, my dear, what are some of the challenges you face on your path to self-discovery?
Yeah, it's a big question. A long answer. The short answer is a lot of them. I think the way that I'll explain it today is there's 2 kind of diverging paths and I think main challenges that I've had, but they unify together in one overarching theme, which is that up until very recently, I have really struggled to figure out what makes me happy, who I am individually, outside of what other people's expectations are of me. And that's been a really hard journey that I've taken over the last couple of years. And ultimately, the thing that has really been the catalyst that's gotten me to the place that I'm in today. But I'll kind of take it way back for you, but I'm a very type A person, always have been, like from the day that I was born pretty much. And I got bullied a lot when I was younger in middle school. I think middle school is not a very fun time for a lot of people. And I had kind of what you would call the quintessential Mean Girls experience, the type of vibe where I would sit down at a lunch table and everybody would get up and leave, where I would come home very, very upset pretty much every day. And that, I hate how much it still impacts me. I hate that those people and those experiences have had such a lasting impact on my life. But the reality is that it did affect my confidence tremendously and my sense of self. And I think that that's a big reason why I really came to rely a lot on external validation for myself to feel okay. And there's only so long that you can go by deriving your sense of self-confidence by the way that others perceive you, because it's a pretty exhausting game to play. But I played it really, really well for a really long time. I had the picture in my head that if I did all of the right things and I followed the right path and I went point A to point Z, that eventually I would do those things, tick, 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 and then at the end of that path, I would be happy. And then, spoiler alert, I got to the end of the path and I wasn't. So, so yeah, that's where it goes to. But I'll take you back, like I alluded to earlier, there's kind of two multifaceted sides to it. There's, again, speaking from my perspective as now a strength and nutrition coach, there's the piece of me really struggling with my role of athleticism and how that played into body confidence. And then the other big part of it was my school journey, and then ultimately how that played into my career trajectory. So is there one side you'd rather me start with over the other?
Oh, well, I wanted to get into this mean girl situation.
Sure, happy to start there.
Because I've been there as well, and the only reason I want to tackle this because confidence is such a big, important aspect that we all struggle with. And that's the solar plexus, right? That solar plexus chakra. And the reason I really want to tackle this because when we're unable to heal that chakra, then it's hard for us to get to the most important one, the heart chakra, right? So in that space for you, because I've also struggled with that in high school. You said up to now that you still kind of struggled with that, right? It kind of just stayed with you?
Not yet. It's not that I struggled with bullying up until where I'm at now, but more the lasting impacts of what that did for my confidence and the way that I related to others. It very much left me in a place where I felt like I'm the only linking factor here. That if I keep going into these different groups and I keep experiencing all of these issues, then the only thing that explains that is me. And so it made me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I was doing something wrong, like I needed to change, like the way that I was, there was something basically defective about that. And that played a really big role in my sense of confidence in social situations, my sense of confidence in who I felt like I authentically was, because I felt like I'm in these situations and I'm just being me and it's not being well received. So it made me feel like I had to start putting on this facade and just doing what other people wanted me to do, because that was the only way for me to avoid the tremendous amount of pain that social isolation caused.
Right, people pleasing.
Yeah, exactly.
Big deal. Yes, definitely.
Huge people pleaser. Yeah.
And did that carry over into college? Like, where did the awareness kick in, where you saw that, having that reflection, right? Seeing and be like, oh, wait, it's because of this. It's not really me. Yeah.
So as a result of this, I'm very lucky that mental health and mental health care has been a really big part of my life since I was a little kid. My parents put me in therapy when I was 12 when I was going through this, and so I started to have that. But it really wasn't until my relationship with my current therapist where he really started to turn that back on me, and we really started to have more of those conversations around the people pleasing and the implications of that, but the implications of how it was affecting my life. I think I always knew. I like to think I'm pretty self-aware, and I've always known implicitly that I really craved validation from others. It happens a lot, like even when I know in my bones I have a good idea or I'm proud of something that I did, I don't feel good about it until somebody else confirms that it was a good idea. And again, that felt like a crutch, but it didn't feel like something that was hugely problematic for me. It wasn't until I started having these conversations in therapy that I really realized how much I had let that guide my entire life. And I think I think talking about that through the lens of how I progressed through school and how I progressed through my career is a pretty good vehicle to explain that, because that's where the pivotal moment comes in for me. And fitness was the thing that was happening in the background, really the only thing I was clinging to behind the scenes that was keeping me level. So, like I said, I'm a really type A person, always have been. Super quintessential overachiever, have been since kindergarten, and so I always put a ton of pressure on myself in school, and I was a great student, and so I followed this path of, if I get good grades, I'll get into a good college. If I get into a good college, I'll get good internships. If I get good internships, I'll get a good job, and if I get a good job, I'll make a bunch of money and I'll be happy. And that was the path that I set out on, because it was the path that everybody tells you is the path to success, and the prestige and the pride around having something like that. So I did exactly that. I got straight A's. I graduated high school, top 12, I think, in my class. I went to a great university. I had stellar internships, graduated magna cum laude, and I finished college, and I had a job offer before my senior year to go work in financial consulting at Ernst & Young. So from the outside looking in, I had what you would completely consider to be the pinnacle of success. I had everything that I had ever worked for, and I was on this path where I wasn't particularly happy the whole time I was on it. Don't get me wrong, I loved college, had the best experience, but it wasn't like I was hugely passionate about what I was doing. I double majored in economics and psychology because I didn't really know what else I wanted to do, but I felt safe being not as happy in those roles because it was finite. I felt like, oh, I'm not necessarily supposed to be happy here. This is the means to the end. If I do this now, then I'll get to the end goal, and then I'll be happy. And so I found myself in this job at EY as a financial consultant, commuting into the city every single day on the train, and I got to this pinnacle, and spoiler alert, I was miserable. I am not meant to be sitting behind a desk all day, crunching numbers, not talking to people. And that realization hit me like a ton of bricks because, again, it was okay in the past because it was finite. But now it's no longer finite. This is just your life now. This is just what you do. And I'm here, and now I'm floundering. And you couple that with my lack of confidence. I mean, I didn't think I was very good at my job. I didn't like my job, so I didn't want to go the above and beyond extra mile to become really good at it outside of work. I had a tremendous amount of imposter syndrome, and I felt like everybody else around me also didn't love it, but they were doing a much better job of faking it than I was. And I am not a good faker. I'm very transparent. I'm very wear my emotions on my sleeve. And so that was the point where I really started to struggle. But that was really where that sense of people pleasing led me on that entire journey. It was because other people told me, if you do this, this, and this, well, then you'll be happy. And since I had had these experiences growing up where doing what I was doing my own way didn't make me happy, I trusted that if I did what everybody else wanted me to do, and if they were proud of me, well, then it would automatically carry over, and then awesome, I'd see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that would be that.
Yeah, and the thing is about the whole entire goal that you explained, like you do this and then you do this and you do this. The goal there is that you will be validated, but amounts of people should be surrounding you, like, yay, she did that and she did this and go Carly. And I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people are out there pursuing that same path.
The rat race.
Right, the rat race, not realizing that it's coming from a survivor traumatic space of not having, the confidence, having, the people pleasing, wanting to be validated. And I think we've all been there. I've had the validation, like wanting to be validated, and then you realize where it comes from. But we all come into that space, and I feel that people in their early 20s, like maybe the late teens, like going to college, if we all knew that we're all kind of struggling from the same traumatic space, we wouldn't be so hard on each other and kind of have more compassion towards each other and kind of embrace that space. But that's in a perfect world, in a different lifetime maybe. But I'm glad you really talked on that, because it's important for, I'm sure there's somebody out there like, oh yeah, that's where I am. And it's like, oh, then you'll have your realizations of like, I'm so unhappy. You're not the first person who has come on here and talked. My previous career was in the corporate setting, whatever industry it was, until I had this epiphany moment, which is why my second question is always, what was the pivotal moment, right? Because there is something that happens and then you become this healer, and it's kind of remarkable. Obviously, there are some that are just always been in that space, but for the most part, I would say 80% of the people that have come on have the same story. So, and I love that, because there are so many people in the rat race, right? And feeling like they're drowning, right? You're just forever trying to swim to the top, and you can't seem to grasp your way up there because that's not your space.
Yeah. And the thing was, as you said, once you get there, you should have had all of these people kind of piling around you and saying how proud they were, and that validation should have given me what I needed. And in the past, it had. In every other situation, people rallying around me and being proud of me for the grades, and proud of me for the internships, and proud of me for everything else, that worked to fill my cup up enough that I could kind of suppress the fact that I didn't feel personally fulfilled by it. And it wasn't that this situation was different and that I didn't have people rallying around me and telling me how proud they were of me. I absolutely did. Everybody was. I mean, my parents will still tell you how proud they were to say that their daughter was going to work at EY, and that she graduated magna cum laude, and all of these things. But this was the first time that it wasn't enough for it to quiet my own internal voice. And that was the pivotal moment. I wish I could say that I made the change at that point, but I can't say that I made the change right then.
Right. Because, but even having the awareness, right? Because it's such a different space from where you're currently then, right, back then, that space to your realization. And you're like, okay, well, what do I do with this? And then how do I do anything to move towards that? What does that look like? And then also releasing that safety. I have a great job. I have all this stuff, and I'm gonna shift here.
Yeah, and it wasn't, when I was there wasn't even a question in my head of, oh, I'm going to shift here. And to give you a little bit of background of how fitness even starts to play a role in this. So if I kind of rewind backwards again to being a little kid. So, athletics have played a really big role in my life since I was very, very small. My dad was a competitive athlete, and so athletics were something that were really important to our family growing up. We were always playing sports in the front yard, and it's some of my fondest memories with him. But so I started gymnastics as a toddler and became a competitive gymnast, and that was a huge part of my life from the time I was 2 or 3 until the time I was, I think, 12 or 13. I was a state champion gymnast. I was in the gym 4 or 5 nights a week for 2+ hours a night. Fitness was a thing in my life that I always took for granted because it was just, it was the team activity. It was what I did. And then when I eventually stopped doing gymnastics, when I was, like I said, about 13 years old, and that came from honestly stress. I started getting stress migraines whenever I would go to practice. I stopped loving it. It was my body's way of telling me, you can't put this much kind of pressure on yourself anymore. It's too much. And athletics still were in my life. I kind of jumped around. I played softball and tennis and soccer. I was always involved in organized athletics. But when I hit high school and I didn't make the high school soccer team, I was devastated because it was all those popular girls that had rejected me when I was a kid, that now I was getting rejected, not by them, but I couldn't even be in that circle. And so that was, it pushed me to the other side of the spectrum, and I fell out of athletics for a while. And then I got to college having no idea how to incorporate fitness into my life outside of just being an athlete. And I started really struggling with my body confidence because I wasn't treating my body very well. I didn't know how to. And so I started to get back into fitness, but not until my junior year of high school. And I did it in a way that I think is probably familiar to a lot of women, which was that I was terrified to go into my college gym because there were too many guys there, and I was afraid of getting laughed at. And what if I didn't know what I was doing? I mean, I know I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And so I did, dragged dumbbells to the corner and jumped around and did burpees and jump squats and lunges and all kinds of other stuff that I really didn't like. But I started to feel a little bit more like me. I started to get into a little bit more of a groove, but definitely took it to a very obsessive place. And again, this comes back to my very type A personality. It was all or nothing. So I jumped into fitness, and it became very restrictive diets, very intense gym regimens, and no fun, no nothing in between. And it wasn't until my senior year of college when I met who's now my husband. His name's Michael. I'll refer to him probably a few times because he plays a pretty big role in the transition to health and fitness. But we became really good friends, and he was training for an Ironman. And so I asked him, hey, can I come to the gym with you, and will you show me how to lift, basically. That gave me the confidence to be able to go, almost like I had the permission from somebody else that I could take up some of that space. And that was when I started to fall down that rabbit hole. And so behind the scenes, as I was really struggling with my sense of self in my senior year of college and going off to this job that I knew I wasn't that passionate about, and ultimately starting this career, fitness became the thing behind the scenes that made me feel the most like myself. That was the thing that I was the most proud of, and it was the first time in my life that I felt empowered to focus on what my body could do instead of what it looked like. And that transformation was huge for me, and I completely fell in love with it. And paradoxically, this was probably one of the first things in my life that people didn't approve of, because I was lifting heavy, and I'm sure any women out there that are in strength sports or that go to the gym and lift, I'm sure you've heard a million times, don't lift too heavy, you're going to get bulky. And that's what I heard from my parents and from friends and from family, or that I'm going to get injured, or I'm going to look like a man. And this was the first time that I said, you know what, I actually don't care what you think. I love this. I'm not stopping this. This is my favorite thing in the entire world. This is the only thing that's giving me any sense of identity and pride and joy. And I'm waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym before I get on the train to go into the city. That's how important it is to me. So that's where it started to play that really, really big role in my life. And it's the thing that I really credit for keeping me going in the background and giving me something to keep me grounded to when kind of everything else was crashing and burning.
No, it's important. It's funny how you're talking about a body image, right? Like, first you're like, I'm worried about the body image, and then you got so into it, and then people are placing more body image issues on you. Like,
you can't win.
Right, you can't win. Like, you either wanna look like a model, and then you fall in love with it, and it just becomes a passion. And then everyone outside is like, well, you're gonna look like a man. Well, you're gonna this and this and that, and then it's like, what the?
What are you supposed to do? Yeah.
What do I do? And
But I do think that was the start for me of starting to, it was the first thing I ever did for myself and not for external validation. It was the first time that I followed my own path and not the path that other people had set for me. And honestly, saying it out loud right now is probably the first time I've reflected on it in that very specific way, the role that it played for me there. Because I've always thought of it really as the role that it played in keeping me sane behind the scenes with everything else that was going on career-wise. But that was where the fire got lit for, I really started to know that was the thing I was passionate about. That was the thing that I loved, that I would research ad nauseum, talk about constantly, and just could not shut up about.
Right, and that's how you know that's your passion, right? When you just can't stop talking about it. It's not even about doing it, you just can't stop talking about it. And then by doing so, you're just embodying these aspects of your passion more and more and more. So it's important to have a safe space to talk about these things, right? Because also the opposite can occur where you find a passion and then there's no one around you to listen. And you kind of have to shrink yourself and keep it to yourself because people don't understand. So I'm glad you brought that up. So that way the listener understands, like, hey, don't stop. Because maybe people around you don't understand or just have a different view of because everybody has an opinion on your life. But your opinion of yourself is the most important. And if there's something out there that you truly love and just want to do, just do it. Because, luckily for us, we're not going to be 100 and just be like, I should have, right? And
Exactly.
now it's more like, no, I'm so happy I did. And for anyone pursuing any passion, do it, because it's all coming from experience, from everyone who comes on here and talks like, I'm so happy that I gave up XYZ to do me, and anything that encompassed that space for me, right?
For sure.
So as you're now falling in love with a different view of working out, right? Because it's not the body image. Now you're understanding what the body can do, which
sure.
is, I always thought, because I'm only 4'11", and I thought if I was at least 5'8", like Amazonian tall woman, what I wouldn't do, like, because I already had the same feeling, like what I wouldn't do, to like have this like full body and just be completely. I'm obsessed with Wonder Woman, but yeah, having that Amazonian, like just working out. It's about what the body can do. I want to know what it looks like, right? Not to say that 4'11" you can't, because Bruce Lee
No,
can.
definitely not. I'm only 5'2", so I'm not that far ahead of you.
Yeah, so there's also the Bruce Lee, right? Bruce Lee wasn't tall, but he showed us what the body can do, right? Doesn't matter how.
And to be honest, I will say shorter people tend to have an advantage when it comes to strength, because your levers are a little bit different than somebody who's a lot taller. So your ability to really move heavy weight, just the way that force is applied to the body relative to where it is in space, tends to be benefited to the benefit a lot of shorter people. The taller people get so frustrated by like the length of their femurs, for example, and how much harder it makes it for them to squat versus somebody like you or I who's a lot shorter. So there are some good benefits that come with it, I will say.
I appreciate that, because I'm gonna be like, ooh. Yeah, because I'm actually coming back into working out myself, because I was in a car accident last year, almost a year ago. The car hit my body. I was crossing the street.
Oh my gosh.
Girl. Yeah, and I was like, I was working out 6 times a week. I did 3 times high intensity and 3 times yoga interchangeably, and then Sunday was off day. But I was, I loved how it felt, and obviously the result is the plus. But I couldn't do any of that until I started healing, and now I'm finally doing yoga. This is my first week that I'll be doing it 3 times a week. That's all I've been doing.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then eventually I'll add on the high intensity. But I see a chiropractor once a month, and getting better and better as I go. And having the patience is a big deal, right? Because you get so accustomed, right, that the body, you're working it out, and the body loves it, and now it's in a space where it's now the mind wanting to do, and the body's like, I can't. And your mind is like, but can we? Like, I missed that, and this, and that, and your body's like, shh. I can't.
Fitness is a long game. The way that I coach now, and I'm sure we'll get to this in a little while, but the journey that I took has informed a lot of the way that I coach, but fitness is a long game. It's all about what can you do consistently. So I'm glad that you took a little bit of time to at least listen to your body, because it will definitely serve you better now as you get back into it, because it'll help you be more consistent, and ultimately that's what's going to help you be the healthiest for the longest amount of time.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that from your expertise. So now that you're, finding out, right, that you love what your body does. Yeah. What is the path next? Like, how does this lead into,
Yeah, for sure. So I made it at EY for 6 months. Was totally miserable. Not a very long time. Totally miserable. Realized I couldn't do it anymore. But to be honest with you, I was 6 months into EY, I was 22 years old. And if you can believe it, I thought it was too late for me to change careers. The
programming is so
deep.
This
is the path that I was on. This is what I've done. I can't change. But I knew I couldn't do this job anymore.
Right.
So I decided to start looking for other jobs. And I fell into what ultimately became, I still call it my unicorn job. I started working as an account manager for a meal prep delivery service. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. I was still able to lean on my more corporate background, and like I was in a more sales position, so I was able to focus on relationship building, but it was in the fitness space. It was a path, something I was really passionate about, and I loved that job. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh my God, this is the answer. Perfect. I was able to merge everything that I wanted. And then 6 months later, 3 days after I got married, the company went out of business. So the rug got totally ripped out from under me again. And that was also really hard because, again, I had just gone on this whole journey. There was this big self-discovery moment. I thought I figured it out, only for the universe to politely or impolitely laugh in my face. And then there was a lot of other personal stuff happening behind the scenes between getting married and moving in together, and then COVID happened, and ultimately I had to find another job, and so fitness again still wasn't a thing I thought I could do. Now it's 6 months later, I'm 23, so now reinforced the fact that I still think it's too late for me to make a change. And at this point, I'm moving from the East Coast out to California, so I'm in a little bit of a time crunch, need to find a job. And so I find a sales job at a smaller company. I rationalized to myself, okay, well, I like relationship building, I like sales, it's a smaller company, I'll be fine, I'll have more of a voice. At a fashion company, which, to be honest, had no interest in. So I made it there 6 months, really toxic work environment, really disliked the role, really struggling with mental health and anxiety. So then I pivoted to another sales job at another startup, again, convincing myself, well, I like the team, I like the dynamic, this one will be a lot better. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. So I made it 6 months in the sales role there before switching to another job on that team, this time in operations. So I did lean manufacturing warehouse optimization for secondhand e-commerce, which is a mouthful and not all that exciting. And then made it there about another 6 months before ultimately having a complete mental breakdown is really what it came to. I was in therapy this whole time, but I just started to get to the point where I was waking up with such crippling anxiety, realizing that I was going to have to sit behind my desk for 8+ hours and stare at spreadsheets and crunch numbers and talk about things that I couldn't care less about, and that I couldn't do it for another day. And that was the turning point. It was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs in about 3.5, 4 years, and just anxiety for me to figure out, okay, something has to change. And that was really where the big pivotal moment started, was in job number 5.
And I'm glad that you brought up the crippling anxiety, because I am sure there are so many people at their jobs with that crippling anxiety and not knowing why. I can't go to work tomorrow. I just don't know why. I just can't sit here. Yeah. And that's the invitation, right? For you to...
It was the Sunday scaries, but also the Monday scaries and the Tuesday scaries and the Wednesday scaries. It was the everyday scaries. And it was waking up, and the first thought that I would have in my head when I woke up in the morning was, I am dreading what I have to do all day. And to wake up and feel a sense of dread every day, nobody wants to wake up like that. And nobody should wake up like that, honestly. And I convinced myself, again, for a long time that was normal. Because, again, like, my frame of reference here is talking to my parents a lot, who come from a generation of, well, you have one job and you do that job, it pays the bills, it doesn't matter if you like it, you just do it. You have passions outside of that. And I struggled with that so much, the idea of, what, you just work nonstop all the time and you're miserable and you do that so you can have 2 days off a week and 3 weeks of vacation a year? That's I think the exact phrase that I used was, that's a scam.
It is a scam. It is absolutely a scam away from yourself, right? Because it's all about not going within and discovering who you are so you can contribute to the world in your most amazing self. And that it is a scam. And all this... There are so many people that, I think the pandemic really highlighted your job if you did not like it. If you didn't know then, you knew at the pandemic that was a no. That was not it. And that was not it. And so I'm hoping that, everyone who saw that during the pandemic has led themselves into a better space and not force, right? Because the blue collar, that generation, like you're saying, like it is that, my grandparents are that space, and my grandfather was just like, you just go to work, you just do it, and you have to provide for your family. There's no other choice. And we have the luxury to have the choices because they let the space where we can see like, oh, well, that doesn't work for me. I can't sit here and just force myself, because mental breakdowns do happen and they're real, and it's a big, big deal. When they come, is for you to listen, right? And realize, like, what is it? Where is this coming from? Why do I have the Monday blues, Tuesday blues, all the blues? Because this isn't for me. What is for me, right?
Yeah, and that was when I realized it was fitness. That was, again, still the thing behind the scenes and all of that. Through every job, through every hurdle, through every anxious morning, it was still me waking up every single day with my husband, going to the gym first thing before work, that being my point of sanity. Right. And so when I hit that mental breakdown, that was really when I had the shift of, okay, I can't just make another half-assed pivot here and just move to another job that I'll stick at for 6 months. I need to make a really substantial change. Yeah. And so while I was still working my job, I went and I got myself certified. And I knew a lot at this point because now, like I said, I had fallen down the fitness rabbit hole for the last 5 years or so. Right. 5 years or so. I was a competitive power lifter. I had done every fad diet, found my way into macro tracking and more sustainable approaches to eating. So I had really used myself as a guinea pig, but then I went and actually started, backing up the bullshit with some actual degrees and knowledge. And once I did that, I then started to have a couple of friends who asked me if, I would coach them. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely not a professional at this, but I can do that. And, so I was doing that, and once I got myself certified, I took the really scary step. I quit my full-time, cushy corporate job with benefits, and I went and I got a full-time job working as an in-person trainer at a gym. I really wanted that experience. I wanted to work hands-on with people, but also, again, the part of me that is risk averse. I knew I wasn't just going to jump in and start my own business right off the bat. There's no way that was going to be sustainable, that was going to be profitable right away. So that job was really serving as my financial backbone while I did figure out really what I wanted to do. And that's ultimately when I decided to start Moxie. So I started the business just about a year ago. I incorporated it. But man, it took me months to even settle on a name, to sign up for my first free webinar, to incorporate, because any of those things were so scary, because it felt like me actually committing to the idea that I was abandoning that life that I thought I was going to have, and turning to this whole totally new thing. But man, was that the best thing that I ever did. And so, I've been now working full-time as a trainer for about, probably 15 months now. And I officially incorporated Moxie about a year ago and started launching to the public about 8-9 months ago. And it's been hard, it's been scary, it's been stressful, but man, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I, for the first time in my life, wake up every single day genuinely grateful and genuinely excited to do what I get to do. And I think having the background that I do and knowing what the alternative is, knowing that what I could be doing every single day when I wake up, it makes the hard days a little bit easier, because at least it makes me realize, well, I choose this hard over that other kind of hard.
Absolutely. It's so important to say, because a lot of people are discouraged to start their own business because it is a lot of work, but the commitment is to yourself, right? And showing yourself, like, I can do this, I believe in myself, and against all the trauma and the survivor and the fears, and it's just prove to yourself that you can, and just push through it. And then when you look back, right, this is you now, like, I had the business. I followed myself, my dream, my passion. And now I wake up and I'm just like, okay, who am I coaching today, right? Who am I, right?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get me wrong. It definitely hasn't been easy. It's still not easy, right? Like, I'm still in relatively early stages when it comes
Right.
to owning a business. And man, if I knew how hard it was going to be when I started, I don't know if I would have actually done it. I think I
Right.
was so naive when I started. I was in such a unhappy place that
Right.
I went, oh, I'm just going to train some clients online. How hard can that
Yeah.
be?
Right.
Hard.
Hard.
I didn't have any systems. I didn't know how I was going to
Right.
get paid. I didn't know how I was going to communicate with anybody, how I was going to mark. I didn't have any processes.
Right.
So looking back on it now, it's kind of funny, but I think that naivety was a bit of a blessing in disguise,
Yeah.
because if
Yeah.
I had known all of the pieces going into it, I think the fear of failure and all of the things that I had looming over me from my past about, am I good enough? Can I do this? Is anybody
Right.
gonna listen? Is anybody
Right.
gonna care? That might have won. But because I
Yeah.
thought, oh, this is just a simple thing I'm gonna do, and I have this other job that's going to help me make that a little bit less scary, I took the leap without even really realizing what I
Yeah.
was doing. And now I know, now I have full transparency, and I have a better handle on it now. And like I said, I'm still incredibly grateful for it, but
Yes.
it's for sure been a journey, and it
Yeah.
still is and will remain to be.
For sure. And what we don't talk about enough is that transitional moment where you let go of all the safety,
Yeah.
however that looks for you, and shift into a space that you've never been, and be a person that you've never been before, right? And not know what that Carly is like. What is Carly on her first session, or what is she gonna say, and just start. And that's bravery.
Yeah.
That's bravery to step in a space that you've never ever have done before, and also your parents have never done either, right? So it's just like, I'm doing something that I'm just trusting, and I'm surrendering that it is, and
Yeah,
and
fingers
then
crossed.
right, fingers crossed. And then what ends up happening is like, oh, you it's okay to falter, it's okay to make these mistakes as you're starting your business, because you're teaching yourself by falling and making mistakes, and then creating that new awareness in yourself of seeing like, okay, next time I coach the next person, I know not to say this, or maybe I should do this. And it's just, it becomes like you're a sculptor, right? You're just like,
Yeah.
okay, my first piece didn't work out, but now I know, because I know how to use my hands better, or now I know that this technique works, or I know XYZ, or right? So you just start to build a new sense of self-confidence
Yeah.
by giving yourself this gift unbeknownst to yourself at the time.
Yeah. And I think even in addition to that too, like the background that I have and the path that I took has informed so much of the type of coach that I am. I think I really have become the type of coach that I wish that I had back when I was at the beginning of this journey. And that's been the coolest thing to see come full circle, is the way that I've been able to incorporate it into my business, and the types of just mental shift that I've been able to work with my clients in addition to those physical shifts. I say that, I call myself a strength, nutrition, and health behavior change coach, and that's where I really rely on my psychology degree and some of my
Right.
more specific certifications in mindset and health behavior change to take that more holistic approach. But I really work with people on how do we work to change your mindset? How do we work to change your own sense of self-worth, your relationship with your body, your relationship with movement, your relationship with food? If we can change your mindset and the way that we think, it's that ultimately is what leads to changes in your body. Instead of just focus on your body, we focus on the mind, and that's what leads to it paying dividends in every other element of your life. And that to me is the most fun part, and also the most rewarding part, because man, if I had somebody walking me through that journey and helping me get my head in a better place, I wouldn't have had the struggles that I had physically as much, because I probably would have been on a better path strength and nutrition wise without being in such a restrictive place and having such an all or nothing mindset, right? So I really am so grateful to get to have those experiences now, as much as they were not super fun when I was going through them.
Right.
It gives me a lot of empathy and a lot of experience to be able to coach people in a way that really takes their entire life and their very unique circumstances into perspective, and then create a plan that they can stick with consistently based on the season of life that they're in and based on where they're at, and really meeting you where you are right now.
Yes. Wait. Yes. Very important. So many goodies that you said there. Was first, I wish that there was a coach like me. And that space there is important for everybody starting their own business, because that is your aspiration. How do I become what I wish existed?
Yeah.
That's your open door. Like you get to do that. You're the one who gets to bring something new that you wish that person, and that's, I definitely relate to that, because I teach mindfulness to children, and everyone's like, oh, I wish I had that as a kid. I'm like, that's why I do it.
I know,
Because
that was when you
that,
told
right?
me that was what you did, and I saw that on your website. That was exactly what I said. Holy crap, I wish that I had that as a kid. What that would have done for me in terms of my own emotional regulation and processing would have been a game changer.
For all of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't have that. It was just like now. I'm like, oh, now it's now. But it's just giving yourself a gift, because even though, and I'll just use this aspect, like, even though we didn't have that growing up, but what I'm giving it is to my inner child.
Yeah.
Right? Even though I can't give it to me then, I can give it to that space that still needs healing. And the same goes for you, right? The space that you wish you had is now given to you and healing. And that's why, even though, like, a lot of people don't incorporate that working out and exercising as healing, it is.
Because so healing. Oh my God, it was the only thing. It was the only thing that kept me sane as I was going through everything else in my life. I really do believe also that taking care of your body is such a proxy for taking care of everything else in your life. When you take care of your physical self, it gives you the tools to be able to push through things that are really hard. And it also teaches you discipline, and it teaches you all of these other really valuable lessons that, again, carry over so much. And it's so corny, but the idea that strength is never a weakness, right? Just being able to be independent and having longevity and being able to carry those things over, the lessons that I learned in the gym of being able to push through really hard moments, man, that stuff has served me so well in the rest of my life.
Right, absolutely. And then this is our home. This is our home.
Yeah, you only get one of them.
It's only the one. So it's important to have and I love the mindset, right? Because then if the mind doesn't know, how is it going to take care of this home, right? So when you shift that and have the understanding to connect one and the two, it's so important. I talk about that too, because it's part of, right, mindfulness, being aware. It's just awareness of the body, and the breath is in the body, and the body's always in the present moment. FYI for everybody listening. And then just developing the body, right? Because the cells listen to you. So if you talk negatively against the vessel, it's going to listen. It's going to be like, oh, well, she doesn't love me, so I'm going to get sick and show you otherwise what happens when you ignore me, right? And all this.
Yeah.
But wow, what a journey, and remarkable that, it's still fresh, right? You're still just having this new business, and now coming into yourself, into the butterfly aspect of yourself. It's beautiful to even like have you at this stage. It's so refreshing and genuine, because that's
Thank you.
We all want to be like, I've been in this business for 20 years, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, not saying no, but it's nice to have like you just coming up.
I'm just coming out of it. I will say the last probably 6 months have been the real light at the end of the tunnel, where I feel like, okay, you know what? I think maybe I'm going to be okay. I think maybe I've kind of figured this out. Not that I all of a sudden overnight had instant success or anything like that, but more that, you know what, I feel really confident that this is the path that I'm supposed to be on, and that if I keep working really hard and that I keep continuing to be as passionate about this as I am and keep doing it for the right reasons, which for me is waking up every day and being really excited to help people to get past a place that, again, I wish I had some help getting past myself, then I just feel confident in myself for the first time that that's gonna work out, or at least that it has to, because again, I know what my alternative is, and I'm not really interested in going back to it.
Yeah, I love not only like, you know, the success story, but it's more like the success story of your lack of self-worth.
Yeah.
And now to have it, because you gave it to yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You realize, like, no one's going to give it to me no matter how much validation I get. It's just, where can and you're not even thinking that. You're like, well, how can I give myself the confidence back?
No, it's so implicit. And again, so implicit in the self-work that I've done. Like, I have to walk the walk that I, you know, again, teach clients to do. I'm doing that same kind of self-work behind the scenes of how can I be the best version of myself, because just like you said, your body and your mind are so tied together. If we take it just from a stress perspective, everything just boils down to stress. Your body can't differentiate between mental stress and physical stress and emotional stress. It's all the same, and there's a finite amount that it can tackle. So the same way that when you go to the gym and you work out, you're applying a stressor to your body, and then you're asking your body to adapt to that stressor and come back stronger. If you have a tremendous amount of stress in other areas of your life, if you're stressed to the brim at work or in your relationships or anywhere else, well, then your body doesn't have any more stress to go around, and then you can't ask it to perform its best physically. So that's why I do focus so much on stress management and on your energy levels and on mindfulness. And those are things that I talk to clients about. When I collect daily biofeedback, we talk about how you're sleeping and how much energy you have and how much stress you're under and where your motivation and your perceived effort is. It's not just macros and how many days a week did you train. It's about so much more than that, because if I don't know the greater context of your life and everything else that's going on behind the scenes, then I don't know what kind of a plan you can realistically fit in to that overall picture.
That part. Right, because you can give someone like, okay, do these things, and this is your exercise regimen, go, and what ends up happening, you're setting them up for failure. Right?
Yeah.
You're not really...
Well, I can even give you the example from myself. Like, again, fitness is such a huge part of my identity. And before I started working this job, like I said, I was waking up in the morning every single day and going before work. So I was training 5 days a week, no problem. But now I start this job and I'm at the gym 6 a.m. to train clients. So now morning sessions aren't an option for me. And with starting the business, I really struggled a lot with prioritizing myself and my own training, because if I had some free time, I was always left to choose between going to the gym or doing something for the business, and the business was winning 100% of the time. And the reality was I had to adjust my expectations and realize that 5 day a week, 2 hours in the gym each time training program that fit that old season of life that I was in, well, that doesn't fit the season of life that I'm in right now, when I'm working 2 jobs and trying to start a business, and I have a dog and a husband and all kinds of other things going on. So I had to adjust my routine. I had to pull myself back from 5 days down to 3 days, right? And sure, it may not be the most optimal in terms of muscle growth and everything else, but the best plan for you is the one that you can do consistently, and the one you can do consistently is always going to be the one that you can fit into your life and that you're excited to fit into your life. So that's what I do, is I help people find the plan that they're most excited to fit into their life, and that's realistic for the phase that we're in right now. And we figure out, how do we make the smallest changes that make the biggest possible impact? And then people see these really big mindset shifts, because then they feel empowered instead of feeling like a failure because you're trying to do something where the expectations are unrealistic. Well, now you're starting to do something that's actually within the realm of what you can accomplish, and then you feel awesome about it, and then wow, now all of a sudden you can do a whole lot more than you might have thought that you could in the past.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So yeah, if you're looking for a personal trainer,
yeah, definitely.
reach out to Carly. Yes. How did the Moxie name come about?
Yeah, great question. So like I said, I ruminated on the name for a
Right.
really long time, and I played around with it a lot. I knew I wanted to have something in the name with like barbell or strength or fitness or something like that, but I really didn't know what I wanted to pair it with. And to me, I struggled with Moxie. Moxie was this word that I loved, and to me, Moxie is like this spunkiness and this fire and this vibrancy and this really, really just kind of cool factor and this excitement for what you're doing. And that to me really summed up a lot of who I was and why I was doing what I was doing. But I was nervous about it because everybody my age didn't know what the word Moxie meant.
Right.
And I ultimately settled on it, and I was like, you know what? Like, I can't think of a word that encompasses this better.
Right.
And the thing was, I was like, you know what? Even if you don't know what Moxie means, like, it is just a cool sounding word. Like, the way it rolls off the tongue, the way it kind of plays off of barbell. But for anybody who does know what Moxie means, it really expresses and I think summarizes the journey really, really well. And also, again, the type of coach that I am and the type of energy that I bring to my coaching style.
I love that, how you brought back this word that was used in movies back in the day.
I know, in like, what, the 50s?
In the 50s, yes. You're a Moxie kid, you know? And yeah, and so I wanted to ask, I'm like, is she using like the real term of the Moxie, or is it?
Yeah,
like,
no, that's really where it comes from.
That is astounding.
I spent a lot of time on online thesauruses where I was playing around with all kinds of different, I was putting in, you know, like all the kinds of words that I wanted and seeing what it spit back out. And as soon as Moxie got spit out, I was like, that's the one. But then again, that need for external validation, I was floating that name with people, and people were like, well, I don't really know what that word means. I don't know if that's the best. And then I realized, again, it took me about 2 months probably to commit to it, partly due to the fear of, you know, other people don't like it. What if they don't gravitate towards it? But then also, if I commit to the name, that means I'm committing to this business being real, and that was really freaking scary. But now I love the name. It makes me really, really happy. And yeah, it is in the original form of you got Moxie.
Amazing. Yes, I love that. So we're gonna touch on this real quick, but as she's this amazing personal trainer, coach, nutrition, all this stuff. But she loves baking.
She does. Yeah, and this is the thing, too, is like, I think people are sometimes surprised to hear that because they think that because I am a trainer and because my life very much revolves around fitness, that it means that I'm fitness 100% of the time. But I certainly don't expect that of my clients, and I don't expect it of myself. I think everything in life is about balance, and man, does your girl have a sweet tooth. So, yeah, we were talking about this the first time we met, but my, like, pandemic hobby was, I'm a huge Great British Baking Show fan, like massive. I've seen every episode of every season probably 10 plus times. So I decided I was gonna bake my way through the Great British Baking Show. So I started like an Instagram blog called Outside the Tent, because they bake in a tent on the Great British Baking Show, and it was kind of a riff on, you know, outside of the box, but outside of the tent. And so I baked my way through an entire season of the show before I eventually had to, you know, get a job and the intense part of lockdown ended. But I did, for anybody who's familiar, there's 3 challenges on the show. So you do like a signature and a showstopper and a technical. So I baked what I would have done if I was on the show, and gosh, it was so much fun. I had a blast with it. I learned a ton, mostly about my pastry making skills. That's like my favorite thing, bar none. But yeah, I love to bake, and I use it as an excuse in a way, I think, to bond with people. Like when I was working in offices, I would always bake for people and bring stuff in. I'll bake and bring stuff into the gym now. I think baking is like my love language.
Yeah, it's so great. And I kudos to you, because I have a hard time baking because it's so strict. Like, it has to be to the T on the recipe.
I'm more fun.
It is fun. I'm more of the savory. So like, I'll cook salty, you know, savory stuff. That's what I was doing in the pandemic. I was like, breads? Yes. Don't tell me to cook bread. So that's kind of baking.
There was some savory stuff in there, but yeah, definitely the sweet stuff is more my favorite.
Yeah. So I definitely understand. Like, I don't have a husband, but I will cook some elaborate 2-3 hour meals for myself, and just to try something. Like, oh, I love that. How would it come out if I, am I right? It's just that whole experimentation, and being proud. Like, I did
Yeah.
this. And it
Yeah.
tastes
Oh no,
amazing.
it is awesome to like you start from nothing, these disparate
Yeah.
ingredients, and you pull
Yeah.
it together and you create something really awesome, and it is so satisfying when you get to the end of it. Yeah.
Amazing. Where can people find you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm all over the socials. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Moxie Barbell. So MoxieBarbell. I post a ton of free educational content on all of those platforms. So in everything fitness, nutrition, mindset, habits, and pretty much everything in between. And then if you're interested in learning more about one-on-one coaching and scheduling a one-on-one consult call, you can check out my website, which is moxiebarbell.com, and you can schedule your free one-on-one consult call with me there and learn a little bit more about the business and the behind the scenes of what I do.
Beautiful. And what I love about a authentic original name like that is that when you go get your website and all the other things, nobody has it.
Nope, it's true. I'm still working on the SEO piece of it, but I do luckily pretty much pop up right at the top of the Google search because it isn't that popular of a name.
Yes, yes, beautiful. Goddess, I cannot thank you enough, and also for your grace and your patience while I was going through stuff. We had to reschedule a few times, and she's been just so understanding and flexible.
My pleasure.
This was worth the wait.
My pleasure. Yeah, no, this was so fun. I'm really glad we got to do this, and I'm so glad that you're in a better headspace now and that we were able to put this out into the world. So thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
It was so fun. So before I let you go, is there anything that you feel called to share to the listener that listened to your journey today?
Yeah. I had this insight actually on another podcast that I recorded a couple of weeks ago, so I think I'll echo it here because it's something that, a lasting thought that has been left with me since I finished recording that, is the idea that it's never too late. I think that was something that was really like an underlying factor of a lot of my journey, that I really felt for a long time that it was too late for me to do a lot of things. It was too late for me to figure out who I was. It was too late for me to change careers, too late for me to start a business, all of these things, which again, now looking back on it, I was 22, 23 at the time. It's comical. Even now I'm 27 and I still feel that sense of urgency, like I have to have everything figured out right away tomorrow or I'm going to be, everything's going to go up in flames. But I think realizing that, again, life is long, right? Knock on wood. Your life is long and we're in this for the long game, and you should be as happy as you can be for as long as you can be. So if you're in a place right now where you're not happy and you're not on a path that you feel called to, whether you're 22 or 82, know that it's not too late to decide to wake up tomorrow and do something differently.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And thank you everyone for listening and expanding with us today. I'm just always filled with gratitude for this space, and always remember that the breath is a secret, and always lead with love. And until next time, thank you all for tuning in.